Ever wondered why some songs just captivate you while others fall flat? The secret could lie in the EQ. EQ, or equalization, is a fundamental tool in the world of audio production. It allows sound engineers to shape and sculpt the sonic landscape of a track, making it come to life. Picture EQ as the fine brush in a painter's toolkit. It helps to enhance certain colors, or in this case frequencies, while toning down others. This process of balancing and blending is integral to mixing and mastering, ensuring that each element of the track shines without overshadowing the others. The right EQ setting can take a track from being good to great, adding depth, clarity, and balance. It can help to bring out the subtleties in a vocal performance, make a guitar riff punchier, or even give a drum beat that extra bit of oomph. Harnessing the power of EQ can be your game changer in music production. So, how do we do that? Before you jump into the deep end, it's crucial to understand the basics of EQ in mixing. Sound, at its core, is a series of vibrations, and these vibrations fall into different frequency bands. Picture these bands as a spectrum, with low frequencies or bass tones on one end, and high frequencies or treble tones on the other. Somewhere in the middle, you'll find the mid-range frequencies. Each instrument and sound source occupies its own unique place along this spectrum, and it's the sound engineer's job to ensure they coexist harmoniously. Now let's talk about gain. Gain, in the context of EQ, refers to the level of increase or decrease applied to a specific frequency band. Think of it as adjusting the volume of specific tones within a sound. Crank up the gain on the low frequencies and you've got a booming bass. Dial it back on the high frequencies and you soften those sharp, piercing sounds. It's all about balance. Finally, there's the Q factor. This term might sound like something out of a spy movie, but in sound engineering, it refers to the range of frequencies affected around a chosen center frequency. A high Q value equates to a narrow range, allowing for precise adjustments, while a low Q value impacts a broader range, making more sweeping changes to the sound. These three concepts, frequency bands, gain, and Q factor, are the foundational tools in your EQ toolbox. But remember, it's not just about understanding these tools, it's about knowing how to use them. Shaping the sound in a mix is like painting a picture. Each stroke, each color you add or subtract can dramatically alter the final piece. The same is true in sound mixing. Each adjustment to the EQ can bring clarity, depth, and dimension to your mix. Now that we've covered the basics, it's time to dive into the practical application of EQ in mixing. Applying EQ in mixing is an art form, but with the right steps, anyone can master it. Imagine you're a painter. Your colors are frequencies, your canvas is silence, and your brush is EQ. The first step in this art form is to listen. Yes, just listen. Like a painter observes the landscape before making the first stroke, you must understand the sonic landscape of your track. This means identifying the key elements in your mix: the kick, the snare, the bass, the vocals, and so on. Once you've identified these elements, it's time to start shaping your soundscape. This is where EQ comes into play. Each element in your mix occupies a specific frequency range. By adjusting the EQ, you can amplify or suppress these frequencies, creating a balance in your mix. But remember, EQ is not about making drastic changes, it's about making subtle adjustments to bring out the best in your mix. Now, let's talk about balance. A well-balanced mix is like a well-balanced meal. It's satisfying and leaves you wanting more. But achieving this balance is easier said than done. You see, our ears are naturally drawn to certain frequencies, especially those in the mid-range. So it's crucial to balance the elements in your mix to ensure that no single element dominates the mix. This is where EQ can be your best friend. By using EQ, you can balance the frequencies in your mix, ensuring that each element has its own space to shine. Next, let's discuss separation. Separation is the secret sauce of a great mix. It's what gives each element its own space in the mix, preventing them from clashing with each other. And guess what? EQ is the perfect tool for creating separation. By cutting or boosting certain frequencies, you can create space for each element in your mix, giving your track a clear and defined sound. But how exactly do you create separation? Well, it's all about carving out space. Let's say you have a kick drum and a bass guitar occupying the same frequency range. By cutting the frequencies of the kick drum where the bass guitar shines, and vice versa, you can create space for both elements in the mix. This way, both the kick drum and the bass guitar can coexist without stepping on each other's toes. And there you have it, a step-by-step guide on how to apply EQ in mixing. But as with any art form, practice makes perfect. So don't be afraid to experiment with different EQ settings and see what works best for your mix. But remember, EQ in mixing is just half the story. Let's explore how EQ plays into mastering. Mastering, the final frontier. This is where your EQ skills can really shine. The subtle art of equalization in mastering is what separates a good track from an outstanding one. It's like the final layer of polish on a carefully crafted sculpture, enhancing its beauty and bringing out its true potential. While mixing is about balancing the individual elements of a track, mastering is about taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. It's about shaping the overall sonic landscape of the track and making sure it sounds great on any playback system. So how does EQ in mastering differ from EQ in mixing? Well, think of it like this. Mixing is like adjusting the colors and shapes in a painting, while mastering is like adjusting the lighting in the gallery where the painting is displayed. In mastering, we're not trying to fix individual problems or bring out specific elements. Instead, we're making broad, subtle EQ adjustments to enhance the overall tonal balance of the track. This might mean adding a little warmth in the low-mid frequencies or a touch of airiness in the highs. It might mean gently taming some harsh frequencies or subtly enhancing the clarity in the mids. The key here is subtlety. In mastering, less is often more. A small EQ move can have a big impact on the overall sound, so it's important to listen carefully and make adjustments with a light touch. It's also crucial to remember that every track is unique. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to EQ in mastering. What works for one track might not work for another, so always trust your ears and be willing to experiment. And finally, remember that EQ is just one tool in your mastering toolbox. It should be used in conjunction with other processes like compression, limiting, and stereo enhancement to achieve the final, polished sound. By understanding and applying these EQ techniques in mastering, you're adding that final touch that can make your track stand out. So we've journeyed through the world of EQ in mixing and mastering, but what are the key takeaways? First and foremost, understanding the fundamentals of EQ is crucial. We've explored how it manipulates the balance of various frequencies within a sound, allowing you to enhance or diminish specific elements. The power of EQ lies in its ability to shape and define your mix, adding depth, clarity, and dimension to your tracks. The importance of careful listening cannot be overstated. It's through attentive listening that you can identify which frequencies need adjusting, whether it's a boomy bass that's overwhelming the mix, or a harsh treble that's causing listener fatigue. Listening is your compass as you navigate the sonic landscape, guiding your EQ decisions. When it comes to EQ adjustments, remember the mantra, less is more. Subtle adjustments often yield the most natural-sounding results. Drastic EQ changes can introduce phase issues and unwanted tonal coloration. Therefore, aim for gentle boosts and cuts that serve the song, rather than drastic modifications that alter the original character of the tracks. Using EQ to create balance and separation is another vital takeaway. By carving out space for each instrument in the frequency spectrum, you can prevent frequency masking and create a mix where every element has its place. This technique is particularly valuable when dealing with dense mixes with many overlapping elements. In the realm of mastering, EQ serves as the finishing touch, ironing out any frequency imbalances and ensuring the track sounds great on all playback systems. During mastering, the EQ moves are generally broader and more subtle than in mixing, focusing on the overall tonal balance rather than individual elements. In conclusion, EQ is a multifaceted tool, with applications ranging from correcting problematic frequencies to creatively shaping your mix and master. It's an art as much as it is a science, requiring both technical knowledge and a keen musical ear. Remember, EQ is a powerful tool in your audio production toolkit. Use it wisely, and you'll be amazed at the difference it can make to your sound.